My name is Chris Yee, and I'm making a 3D puzzle platformer called Nectar. In the game, you play as a potted sunflower with its bumblebee companion, using nectar to grow plants, solve puzzles, and manipulate the world. My rope video last month didn't blow up quite like I hoped it would, so this month I'm back to making normal run-of-the-mill devlogs. No more ropes. And in this video I'm going to talk about a very big decision that I've made. After a year and a half of development on Nectar, I have decided to start over from scratch. Throw everything in the garbage and start from square one. Now, that may sound like a huge waste of time, but I promise I have some very good reasons for doing so. The first reason is that my project files just become really bloated with plugins and megascans and other assets from the Unreal Store, a lot of which I'm not actually using. My project file size is currently at 56 gigs, most of which are probably just megascans or plugins that I was just testing out, playing around with, and eventually abandoned. There are so many unnecessary things in this project file, and at this point it's a little hard to tell what I need to keep and what I can get rid of. So I figured starting from scratch would allow me to be more cautious about what assets I add to the project. The second reason I'm starting over has to do with the same thing that I was dealing with in my rope video from last month. I was trying to simplify, organize, and optimize my rope in the game, and in redoing my rope actor, which you can learn more about in my previous devlog, I realized that the whole game could benefit from the exact same treatment. When I started this project, I literally had zero experience in Unreal, but now I've worked in the engine for a year and a half, and I've learned a lot of valuable techniques and skills. While I'm not an expert with Unreal still, I have a lot to learn, I have learned a lot of best practices in programming that I didn't know before, and I want to implement those into my project from scratch. It will ultimately make Nectar a more scalable project as I grow the game. And if you're just getting into programming yourself, and you want to establish a good foundation and knowledge of best practices, a great place to do that is with the sponsor of this video, Brilliant. Brilliant has a wide range of science, math, and programming-related courses to help you broaden your knowledge and learn new skills. Brilliant takes a hands-on approach to learning, rather than reading from textbooks and watching lectures. Brilliant uses interactive examples to test your understanding as you go. It doesn't rely on memorization. Instead, Brilliant focuses on critical thinking and problem solving. Personally, I found their wide range of programming courses extremely valuable. To try everything Brilliant has to offer for free for a full 30 days, visit brilliant.org/nerdchomp, or click on the link in the description. You'll also get 20% off an annual premium subscription. Thank you again to Brilliant for sponsoring this video. So, I'm starting from scratch. I'm literally starting a new Unreal project file with nothing in it, and this time my goals are the same as they were with the rope, just on a larger scale. I want to simplify, organize, and optimize my project, and ultimately build Nectar on a healthier foundation. And I know a lot of you are probably rolling your eyes saying he's never going to finish this game, he still hasn't even made a single level, a year and a half and he has nothing to show for it, but that's not true. It was a year and a half of development on Nectar, but most of that time was spent experimenting and learning, and now that I've had time to experiment and gone through those learning experiences, I believe I can go much faster now. What took me a year and a half the first time around, I think will only take me about 2 or 3 months the second time around. But who knows, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'll hit some unexpected roadblocks and it'll take me another year and a half to get back to where I am now. Maybe all you naysayers are correct. Only time will tell. Nope, the naysayers are wrong. It's already done. I started this endeavor in secret about 3 months ago. I did what I said I was going to do. I started a new Unreal project file and began to rebuild. And I did reuse all of the models and animations I had already made. There was nothing wrong with them. My main focus was the programming side of things for the mechanics of the game. So technically, I didn't start from scratch if you want to get semantic about it, but whatever. And now I'm back to where I was for the most part. There are a couple mechanics I tweaked, and I haven't worked on the trees or grass in the game yet. There's no sound in the game still. I need to get that back in the game. But I wanted to focus solely on gameplay and mechanics to establish a solid foundation for building levels. I've approached a lot of things differently than I did the first time around. But instead of going through every single change and tweak that I made in this video, I think I'm gonna just go over the overall philosophy that I took this time. A lot of the micro improvements that I made were very similar to what I did with the rope, so again, you can check out that video if you want to know more about those types of details. But generally, my new approach while rebuilding Nectar was to make things modular and reusable whenever I can. For example, there are a bunch of items in the game that the Bumblebee can hover over and grab. My old approach was to program the hover functionality and grab functionality into every single individual actor. So my rock actor, if you want to pick up a rock, would have its own hover and grab functionality programmed specifically for rocks. And then my crystallized Nectar actor would have the same thing, just copied and pasted into the Nectar actor. And I did this for a bunch of different things. While it worked, it was a pretty big hassle, especially if I wanted to change something, because I would have to change it everywhere. And it left a high potential for bugs, because if I changed one thing, then I might forget to change it somewhere else. And it would just get overcomplicated. It would also inflate the size of my blueprints and made it harder to find things. So my new approach is more modular. I now use actor components. So I have what I call a hover component that carries all of the hover logic no matter what the object is. And if I want the object to be hoverable, I just apply this component to the actor. I have another component for interaction, and that interaction includes grabbing functionality. So for my rock that I want to hover and pick up, I just drop my hover component and my grab component into the rock actor, and it's good to go. It has all of the logic it needs. This approach is much easier to implement, it keeps my blueprints slim, and it makes it easier to change things if I need to. I only need to change the component, and those changes will automatically carry through any actor that's holding the component. Another improvement I've made while rebuilding Nectar is my use of tick. In my rope video, I showcased my use of gates to control tick, but many of you pointed out that it's much better to use timers instead. While a closed gate prevents anything past the gate from running, tick does still get called every single frame, and then it has to decide to do nothing. And while this is a very small performance cost, it is still technically a cost. But the main reason timers are better is that they're easier to control. It's a lot easier to tell a timer when to run and when not to run. And when a timer is paused, it isn't being called like tick is. It actually just isn't running at all. You can also control the increments that the timer runs at too. So if you don't want to run it at every frame, then you don't need to. You can run it at 0.1 seconds, 0.2 seconds, whatever you need. There's just a lot more flexibility with timers. And using a combination of timers and timelines, I was able to completely eliminate my use of tick in the entire project. In addition to those improvements, my file structure is also a lot better. In my old project file, I started with the third-person template, and I built it from there without much thought going into organization. There were several instances where I struggled to find something that should have been easy to find. But starting over, I was acutely aware of this issue, and I made sure to keep organization in mind from the very beginning. I also make sure to delete anything that I'm not using to avoid overinflating the file size, like I did with my old project file, and I'm very cautious about what I import and where I save it. I've made some small visual improvements too. I've updated the sunflower model on the main character. I was previously using a pre-made asset from a flower pack, which I had modified and then attached to the character. But comparing it to different photos of real sunflowers, I just had the nagging feeling that it didn't really feel like an actual sunflower. It didn't look like one. It kind of just looked like a daisy that was tinted yellow. I find that sunflowers are bigger and more vibrant and almost more powerful feeling. Something about them, it just feels more powerful and present. And I wanted to try to capture that in a new model. So I scrapped the asset and I started a new model from scratch. And my new model feels what I think is a lot truer to what a real sunflower looks like. I added some noise to the shape of the petals to make the geometry less perfect, and I slow pan the noise texture, which results in the petals slowly moving. The effect is subtle, but it almost feels like the petals are ruffling in the breeze. In my opinion, the new model looks more organically like a sunflower than the old one did, and it's just more recognizable as a sunflower, which is one of the benefits you get from modeling from scratch. You get exactly what you need it to look like. And that line of thinking carried over to my current philosophy regarding other assets and plugins. When I can, I would like to avoid pre-made assets or megascans and plugins as much as possible, at least for the major stuff. My old project file used a plugin for the sky, rain, weather system, and also used a plugin for the menu and key binding system. And while I think it's completely acceptable to use plugins like these if you do it responsibly, I prefer to know exactly how my systems work. I would open up these plugins, I'd look at their inner workings, and I'd have absolutely no idea how they function. Which isn't ideal, because if I wanted to customize something to my own unique needs, it was very difficult to do so because I wouldn't know what I need to change. The plugin wasn't built for that kind of customization. Building my own models and systems will also help me manage the project's file size. I won't have to import giant foliage asset packs with hundreds of assets just to use a single tree in the game, which is something that I did in my in my original project file. And the same goes for plugins. Many plugins often seem to have additional functionality that I just will never use, and it all ends up being a big waste of space. I say all this now, but at the time of this video, I haven't rebuilt my sky weather system or my menu key binding system. So who knows, maybe I'll eat my words, maybe I'll cave and eventually come crawling back to these plugins. But for now, I'd at least like to try to build them myself, so that I can fully and completely understand how they function. That is work for the future, but for now, with the core functionality of Nectar rebuilt, I would like to focus on a task that I feel has been long overdue: level design and world structure. Many of you have asked why I'm spending so much time adding new mechanics when I should be working on levels. And while I think building my mechanics first was essential to do, the task of building levels has been lingering in my mind for a long time now, and I'm itching to get started. Now, with a fresh start, a better organized project, and a deeper understanding of my vision, I think I'm ready to dive into that task. So you can look forward to seeing some of that in my next video. If you want to see how that turns out, you can subscribe to my channel for more devlogs like this. If you want to join the community, I have a link to my Discord in the description. And if you want to support the game itself, the best way to do that is to go to the Steam page and wishlist the game. A link to that is also in the description. And once again, thank you to the sponsor of this video, Brilliant. Thanks.